Welcome, everybody, to the 125th Regular Executive Board meeting. Captain Joe DePete. This meeting will come to order. On behalf of ALPA's National Officer Team, I welcome you to the 125th ALPA Executive Board meeting in our new digs here at the Vallow Park office. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to walk around, but I encourage you to do that. Come up on the fourth floor and take a look around at the executive offices. Let me start with some good news about some of our newest ALPA members. When we last met, I reported that an overwhelming number of pilots with PAL Airlines, including Air Borealis pilots, filed membership cards with the Canada Industrial Relations Board, or the CIRB, seeking ALPA representation. This was the fastest card drive in ALPA's organizing history. I think a round of applause would be appropriate for that. All right. It took nearly 2 months, not that for a long time, because the CIRB had to complete its investigation of the application before certification. In June, the CIRB confirmed ALPA as the representative body for both pilot groups, which we structured as one MEC known as PVL, or provincial, representing both airlines, PAL and Air Borealis. The CIRB also certified ALPA as the representative for the pilots of Perimeter in June. Where's my Perimeter pilots over here? Where are you guys at? Where's that? Over here? Anybody? No? Not here yet. Okay. And not yet. All right. The Perimeter pilots are part of the same parent company, EIC, or Exchange Income Corporation, I believe, with Bearskin. Perimeter is the final stages of electing their representatives now. These new reps will work with the existing Bearskin reps to begin negotiations for a joint collective agreement, followed by merging their pilot seniority lists. We hope to welcome the Master Chairman and these two pilot groups at the next Executive Board meeting. So, Bill Couette, would you please come and assume the chair for the purpose of calling the roll, sir? There you go.
Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, everybody. Who's hiding behind the pillar? Oh, is that Rick? Okay. Oh, and there's Anna hiding back there, too. Oh, and there's Keith. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll start the roll. Alaska Airlines, Will McQuillan. Air Wisconsin, the proxy is Ken Reinhardt. Air Transport International, Mike Sterling. Bearskin, the proxy is Brendan Potter. Coletta, Scott Nelson. Calm Air, Brendan Potter. Commute Air, Earl Blowers. Canadian North, Bill Rogers. Compass Airlines, Thomas Vandenberg. Delta Airlines, Ryan Schnitzler. Endeavor Air, James Johnson. Envoy Air, Steve Pillay. First Air, Peter Black. FedEx Express, Pete Harmon. Frontier, Tracy Smith. Air Georgian, Tim Perry, who is serving as the custodian now. Hawaiian Airlines, Larry Payne. Jazz Aviation, Claude Borrelia. JetBlue, Pat Walsh. Kelowna Flightcraft, the proxy is Dave Calhoun. Mesa Air Group, Andy Hughes. Perimeter, proxy is Brendan Potter. Brendan, you're the big dog. Piedmont Airlines, Bruce Friedman.
Last time, here.
That's what you think. PSA Airlines, the proxy is Kurt Ebert. Provincial, proxy is Brendan Potter. Sun Country Airlines, Brian Leithert. Brian, did you make it? You did. Fantastic. Sky Regional, proxy is Claude. Spirit Airlines, Stuart Morrison. Trans-States, Trevor Kleinschnicker. Kleinschnicker? I got it. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Trevor. Air Transat, proxy is Dave Calhoun. United Airlines, Todd Insler. WestJet Encore, proxy is Chris Darble. I know he's en route. Chris, going once, going twice. I know he'll be here. WestJet, Dave Calhoun. Wasaya Airways, James Harding. And ExpressJet Airlines, Joseph Morrow. Thank you. That completes the roll, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Will Bruce Friedman from Piedmont, Chairman of the Credentials Committee, please come forward to report at the speaker's podium?
Can you believe they actually wanted me to do this? That's amazing. I'll do the report first for the 125th regular executive board meeting. Dates October 22 through 24. We have number of board members registered with Credentials Committee 26, number of valid proxies registered with Credentials Committee 8, total number of accredited representatives 34, number of representatives not attending nor represented by proxy 1, and total board membership 35, so submitted by myself. You want me to go on? Actually, I bet I could say a few things that might save us a lot of time here, because I'm sure we don't. Well, I'm sure we'd like to shorten Joe's report because you know how he hates speaking in front of everybody, and so I was just imagining what their prep session must have been like, and so the officers are all up there, and Joe's starting to tell them, well, you know, I think there's be some things I'm gonna have to talk about, and so he says, well. He starts off with a good one. KCM. I said, oh, no, Joe, you don't want to bring up KCM. That's so controversial. Marcus, close your ears, please. We know it doesn't stand for crew member for a C, do we? So they said, I'm talking KCM, Joe. We don't need to bring it up. Then he said, well, we got to bring up jump seat because that's a hot button topic right now, right? And it's like, no, don't bring up jump seat. That is so controversial right now within the association. Don't do it. He said, okay, I won't do it. So far, we've shortened your speech by 2 items there. And you already started with Vallow Park, and that pillar is an absolute beautiful design. There must have been an award for the design of this room.
I was going to wrap it in mirrors, all right, so I could kind of see or something
Then
like, so
you
I
have
could
to
maybe.
see, then you have to see yourself all the time while speaking, and that might distract you. You know how you like to look at yourself. I remember Berlin. So they said, we won't talk about Vallow Park. That's pretty controversial. Well, because I was just going to mention those obstructive seats. So I'm thinking that you folks have paid dues and you have obstructive view seats, ALPA's going to reimburse you some of your dues money because you can't see this whole meeting live. So that's a good thing, I guess. Now, one of Joe's favorite items is the 117 carve-out for cargo pilots. It's probably on there as one of the to-do lists up on Capitol Hill, but you know what? It's going to be one of those don't-do lists because it's not going anywhere with the present administration and everything. So save your time. Don't worry about it. Secondary barriers. You got so many barriers up on Capitol Hill, the secondary is like nowhere near being an issue. You're talking multiple barriers to getting secondary barriers. FA funding, that's another topic you usually bring up. I don't know where that stands, but chances are it's not going anywhere either. So, and Kitty Hawk, that's hiding somewhere in Bermuda. I'd love to see the office of that place. I envisioned it. I envisioned it as one of those doors, like a speakeasy during Prohibition, and you knock on the door, and a little thing slides over. Says Joe sent me, and say, "Okay, come in." And lastly, one of the hot topics is diversity. As usual, you can look around the governing body here, and you can just see diversity staring at you in the face. So Joe, I think I've shortened your report. You're done, exactly. That was the whole goal, and we're not leaving the rest out. Bob, I'm just going to say 4 things: ASO, ALPA, ICAO, and DART, and you're done. See? As a matter of fact, I think DART means don't announce retirement today, all right? And Joseph, man of acronyms. I could see them getting in an argument. All right, dues 1.85% starting next year. Yay, great, okay. Scuffs, SSAFR, MCF, OCF, ANS. Anything else? That covers it all? That's that. And then there's Bill, way down there. Bill, I've known you for a long time. Right now, I should start out. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I can't hear you. Uh, yeah. The water Bill. I don't think Bill's staying here at the hotel, which is a good thing because he's taking long showers right now because the Vikings have been winning, and so we know what that means. So we're about 60,000 members, and he's going to be offering referral fees if you can find any of the airline groups that we can get in the ALPA. So I think that covers the National Officers Report. Thank you.
We stand adjourned. Thank you. Look, everybody, if you're like me, you look forward to seeing Bruce at each of these executive board meetings. We're going to we all talked about whether or not to do the property reports that we kind of skipped over last time, but we got some feedback from everybody that, we'll put it out if anybody wants to say anything. So you might want to put that in your head and you want to share something with everybody, but don't feel compelled to generate something just to use up time like he does, like Bruce does. But anyway, but no, we all decided amongst ourselves that regardless of the policy, whatever that is, one exception, he always has to do one. And even if you have to come back. But your updates, nobody really does it better. And so, this is his last meeting. And so I wanted to take the opportunity, Bruce, to thank you for your service to this union because you have done a lot for us. You really have. And don't feed the beast. That's all I'm going to tell you. But no, I want to. Bruce started as a local council rep for Pennsylvania Airlines in 1987. Bruce, transitioning to Allegheny Airlines, and lastly to Piedmont. With a few small breaks here and there, Bruce dedicated more than 30 years to ALPA work. It's a long time. So thank you, Bruce. Really do appreciate it. And we hope you'll come back and visit us and critique us as you go along and deliver your wisdom to us, because you really did cover everything that I had talked about today. So, we're sort of done. If you just want to go right to the agenda items, we could be out of here by 2. So, but anyway, all right. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our deceased members. So if I'd ask for a moment of silence to recognize our ALPA members who have passed away since we last convened. Thank you. Okay, so for those of you who are newly elected to the executive board, let me introduce you to those seated with me at the table here. On my right, we have Steve Moldorf, our parliamentarian and member of ALPA's outside counsel law firm, and Captain Bill Couette, Vice President, Admin Secretary. On my left, I've got Captain Bob Fox, our first Vice President and our National Safety Coordinator, and Joseph Genovese, our Vice President of Finance Treasurer. Now let me introduce the members of the Executive Council seated behind you. I believe they're behind you, right? I have to get used to the layout of this room. Will you please stand when I call your name? Starting at the left end, there are Wes Reed, Group A from FedEx. Wes. Tyler Hawkins, Group B2. Tyler. Wes Clapper, Group A, JetBlue. All right. Tim Perry. Oh, you get $20 every time that thing goes off there, Joe. Tim Perry, Group C. Drew Massey, Group A, Delta. Good, Drew. Mike Hamilton, Group A, United. around the post. Joe Youngerman, Group A, Alaska. Joe. Jim Johnson, Group B3. Is Jim? And Sean Creed, Group B1. Right. Also seated with the executive vice presidents are my trusted companion there, Russ Galenka, our executive administrator. Russ, thank you. And Paul Ryder, our resource coordinator. Thank you. Now, we'll begin the first order of business outlined in our Constitution and bylaws, which is your officers' reports. And Bruce, I'll start with mine. All right. Got to cover a lot, right, Bruce? But I just want to say this. When my administration first took office and prepared to enter into this job, we made a deliberate effort to listen and to learn. We dropped any preconceived ideas about your goals and your priorities and the members that you represent. We made a commitment to step away from old habits and restrictive thought patterns. Our goal was transparency in the leadership of this association, and that's carried through not only the national officers, but amongst the EVPs as well. We understand that fixed patterns don't allow us the nimbleness to adapt. When we fly the line, airline pilots constantly adapt, and we do so at a pace and frequency few other professionals ever experience nor understand sometimes. The same must be true for our union. We must nimbly adapt to today's challenges. At the same time, we must always build our strength and expertise to be ready for the unexpected in the future. Your national officers have fostered what I believe is an unprecedented spirit of transparency and collaboration, and some of us have been around for a while, and it's one of the topics at each of our meetings to remind ourselves. We truly work as a team. It's not always easy. We're all moving around on any given day, and it's one thing to say that that's going to happen, but you can only imagine each of our days start rather early, and we have to try to make a really conscious effort to coordinate to make sure everybody's on the same page. With the guidance of this organization's strategic plan and the direction of this body, our administration is swift and decisive. Every day, I recognize that it's through an incredible act of will that our union brings pilots together in unity. We make that conscious decision at ALPA to focus on our commonalities and not our differences, and that's what makes us great. Truly, we nimbly adapt to take on virtually every issue facing the industry and our profession. And I know that you know, that only ALPA can realize such an achievement. And I'm foreshadowing, because we're going to have a discussion a little later on about what we do that's different and why it's so important and why it's of value. Our union's goal is to move all airline pilots forward, but it's my job to make sure that ALPA member benefits first and foremost from the incredible expertise available within these walls and far beyond them. Regardless of everything else that's going on, my national officer team always starts from the standpoint of our members' contracts. That's one of our laser focuses. Every ALPA resource is appropriately focused on helping our pilot groups advance their objectives through stronger collectively bargained agreements. My administration has committed to serving every MEC equally and using a transparent process to do it, if you remember that promise. Everybody has a voice in this organization, large and small. We're vastly expanding our research, services, and support in every discipline for our pilot groups and negotiations. For example, we know that constant and comprehensive member communications are incredibly important to how line pilots perceive and support their MEC leaders. We made a lot of changes to make that a better process, and I think you're starting to see the result of that. As a result, we're offering more communications, strategy building opportunities, and outreach tools. We told you about the new app, the new design on the application, the jump seat component of that, which is the value proposition, right, that would draw people to the app, and we've got some really super plans to make that a very proactive process where it's going to be hopefully a one-stop shop for grab and jump seats. But it's going to draw our members there, and plus we'll have, obviously, the capability for notifications very soon, as well as alerts. So we really will have an opportunity, and hopefully that will grow and more people will have the app. We're also creating new ways for MECs to collaborate in greater depth and detail. One recent example is that for the first time in many years, we've reestablished ALPA's joint standing committees. This was part of our initial commitment when we came into office to help elevate the voices of some of our small to medium-sized carriers. Through these committees, we'll fortify the working relationship among MEC chairs who represent members at affiliated carriers with a common brand. The joint committee structure will allow us to maintain an open dialogue and work together when problems occur and opportunities arise. Why is this important? Why is this important now? Because we know that our airlines are going to continue to experience a tremendous amount of hiring in the future. As a result, many of our pilots who currently fly for regional airlines will have the opportunity to move to the main lines. And I want to thank some of the big A-carrier master chairmen for helping make some of that happen. You guys have really done an amazing job and just jumped right into this whole process, and I really do appreciate that. But we know a lot of these B and C problems have A-group solutions. So these joint standing committees will create a framework and a format for our new members to hit the ground running and engage right away on issues that affect their careers. ALPA provides our pilot group leaders with more expert analysis and resources than ever to look at issues from every possible angle. For example, our Fee for Departure Committee met just before this meeting. Members learned about foreign worker visas and career progression programs. And we know some of those career progression programs at some of the carriers are not all created equal. Some of them come with some issues, and where's James? James, you know what they are. And we're struggling to deal with some of that. But similarly, the Collective Bargaining Committee met earlier this year to identify trends in collective bargaining and refine its plans for delivering negotiations, training, and bargaining resources to our pilot negotiators. Now, MEC chairman will brief us later on the developments at their individual pilot groups, as I said earlier, but I can tell you that what we've seen we've seen positive progress in a wide range of circumstances, and I'd like to offer just a few broad observations about that. ALPA is embracing bigger thinking as we negotiate contracts. Big statement, and I'll tell you why. I often talk about the life-saving importance of a risk-predictive model and safety. See, that time as NSC is going to pay off here right now, because I'm going to talk about, but our union also works to predict risk for our MECs in contract negotiations as well. For example, I reached out to Air Georgian pilots at the beginning of this month to share the Executive Council's collaborative decision to place their MEC into custodianship. With ALPA Canada's president, Captain Tim Prairie, as custodian, I'm confident we'll realize our goal of returning the MEC operations to the local pilots as soon as the situation stabilizes. Looking at it more broadly, however, the situation raises serious and unfortunately age-old concerns about the right to organize and the dignity of work. These pilots are going through a lot up there, really, right now. And Tim, you've done an amazing job, and I thank you for stepping up to do the custodianship. It's not as if you don't have enough to do. But as you know, I believe that the right to organize is a human right to me. It's a basic human right to have a voice in what you do. I've said it before, you've all heard it. I believe that when you first meet somebody, what's the first thing they ask you? It's typically what you do, not what you did on vacation, because what you do is a source of self-esteem, identification, place in society, and those types of issues. You don't even talk about labor, you just talk about work. Philosophers have written about that throughout the ages, rather. So as many of you know, Air Canada decided to transfer all of its Air Georgian capacity purchase agreement flying back to Jazz Aviation. And thanks to the efforts of the Jazz MEC, and Claude, you did an absolutely amazing job of helping stabilize a really ugly situation, and potentially from a patent bargaining situation, really, I would say, Tim, I think you'd agree, definitely stabilize. We were getting a little concerned there about the wage structure. So, but that Jazz provided pilot group date of hire seniority and longevity for pay purposes to the Air Georgian pilots who opt to transfer with the aircraft. Now, while Jazz management had a systematic process and timeline for bringing over the pilots, Air Georgian management had a different plan. They considered our 3 main ALPA volunteers to be surplus. You want to talk about the dignity of work? You got a letter that says You're being surplused. Your services are no longer needed as of X date. Put them out of a job effectively September 30th. While these three pilots would have transferred to Jazz later on in the process, they were transferred early to wipe out our MEC chairman, negotiators, and grievance representatives. One fell swoop. This type of behavior is classic anti-union bullying and cannot and will not be tolerated. We're taking the matter to the Canada Industrial Relations Board as we speak, and we're challenging the Air Georgian management team's misconduct. And let me tell you that management can be sure, if they're watching, that we will not tolerate it. We will not tolerate it. I don't think they quite understand that they don't get to pick who they negotiate with. That's the pilot's job, right? To elect representatives. I think they've got a little backwards right now, but they're in a state of transition and flux with their flying, and they're taking advantage of the situation. But until then, we think we have a plan to stabilize it as that unfolds. So we also know that we can predict risk for labor when pilots don't have a collectively bargained labor agreement. This is one reason why I felt so proud to stand with Representative Peter DeFazio, chairman of the U.S. House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, at a Capitol Hill news conference earlier this year. Representative DeFazio announced the introduction of legislation to enable the DOT to prevent atypical business models and flag of convenience airlines from operating to the United States. There's no better representative for our views at the Airline Pilots Association. I swear, I feel like he reads the advocacy page on our website like every day. He's just incredible. But ALPA fully supports more than 100 U.S. open skies agreements, the vast majority of which are working well. But the United States must ensure that a foreign airline's U.S. services are in the U.S. public service interest. The Fair and Open Skies Act simply requires that the DOT use its existing public interest test to examine whether a foreign airline would be operating a flag of convenience business model. Simple. Fair. So contracts play a huge role in our members' quality of life, goes without saying. But so does secure access to our workplace through KCM, at least here in the U.S. Canadians, stand by here for a second while we do this. I'm pleased that ALPA achieved a significant win a few weeks ago when the TSA scrapped the intended implementation of a KCM uniform requirement policy. The administration replaced it with a more reasonable measure. And I say that without letting you know that in between all that, there was an incredible effort. I don't think many people slept for maybe 700 days while we worked through that whole process, but I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to understand what the heck was going on there. But once we did, we made the plea that there was just absolutely no way that a uniform requirement was going to make any difference based on what I saw in terms of security. So we are aware of the current shortcomings, including those involving the electronic randomizer function, which has been, which we thought was going to be a positive introduction to have an objective means by which to test the integrity of the system from our old subjective means. But right now, that thing is tweaked to a pretty high level, and we've got some real issues with that. It's compromising our ability, really, to realize KCM's true potential to enhance the security and efficiency of air transportation, because in our very direct conversation with A4A, we made it very clear that while they may be interested in getting crews swiftly through security in order to get an on-time departure, we're actually really interested in the security of the folks that get on our airplanes, all right? That this is truly a risk-based program, and it should be treated as such. And yes, it is a convenience, but then after all, I reminded them that many times that we are the most heavily scrutinized profession in the world. I don't think if you can name one profession that's more scrutinized than all of us, so we're heavily vetted. I mean, I made the point to Admiral Pekowski that we've got decorated war heroes walking through there sometimes. And people who have held, myself, top secret clearances and things like that. And I'm certain the people there. So we're trying to work this out. So 2 weeks ago, with the event of this randomizer problem, I called Administrator Pekowski again to express my concern. I conveyed our frustrations that many of you have been experiencing, and I got to tell you, when you report to us and give us the specifics, it really helps, because I place that on the desk, and I let them read it, and it's really, I could tell, it's, you know, training is a big issue at the TSA. It's very difficult for them. But when they see what's happening, and there was one recent one, Bob, that you gave me, I dare not even describe it, because it just doesn't make any sense what they did to that one pilot. So anyway, so at my request, Administrator Prokowski pledged to review the issues and report his findings to this board, this executive board, on Thursday. It was originally planned for Wednesday, but as you, I don't know if you know, but he's now the acting deputy Department of Homeland Security after McClellan left. And it caused quite a bit of controversy. He's dealing with a big whirlwind, but the fact that he's still hanging on and willing to come a day later, and that's why I sent you that letter asking you to be patient with us and extend a little bit, because it's a very important issue to our crew members, no question. So, in ALPA safety work, we're drawing on our air safety organization's expertise under Bob's leadership to determine our next steps in ensuring the safety regarding the return of service of the Boeing 737 MAX once the regulatory review process is fully complete. You read the news last week, or this week. It's constantly a changing situation. But here's what I do know. I know what is true on every flight. It is safe to fly when the pilot in command says it is. There's nothing new there. And so that's the attitude we're taking. We'll see it. We had some meetings with Boeing and made our positions very clear. Thank you, Chairman Insler, for helping clarify that. I don't think, after you made your comments, I don't think there was any doubt in their minds where you stood. And I was glad to back you up on that. So our position is no different dealing with the Boeing 737 MAX, and Captain Fox will have more information about that in his report. So during our incredibly successful 2019 Air Safety Forum, we highlighted the work-life effects of cargo pilots at companies. Not having the opportunity to receive adequate rest and the importance of achieving one level of safety across the industry. It's been a long time since that rule has been implemented, and there it is. And folks, it's a glaring, gaping hole in the system as a whole. It's existing risk. As everyone knows in this room, science-based flight and duty time regulations issued nearly a decade ago for passenger airline operations did not include pilots who fly cargo. Actually, I'll correct that. They did, but they got carved out from an OMB process, a flawed cost-benefit analysis. So I make this point at every opportunity as human beings, because we're all airline pilots and we all experience fatigue, regardless of whether we fly passengers or cargo. Moreover, both passenger and cargo flights operate in the same airspace and into and out of the same airports. In addition, accident data clearly shows a disparity exists between passenger and cargo operations. For instance, all cargo carriers have a 7 times higher accident rate, 7 times higher, while they only operate 6 to 7% of all 121 operations. I think when we did the math, we figured that if we swapped and we did the 93% of the flying, and you all did the passengers did the other 7, that there would be about 12 accidents a year. A year. It's crazy. Based on 1 million departures over a 10-year period. The fatal 2013 all-cargo airline accident in Birmingham, Alabama, for instance, cited fatigue as a contributing factor. Congress recognized the seriousness of pilot fatigue in their 2010 FAA reauthorization when it directed the FAA to develop science-based flight time, duty time, rest regulations for all FAR 121 operations, passenger and cargo. So you add this all up, and there's simply no logical reason for cargo to be carved out of science-based fatigue rules. Now, I'm making certain this union looks at all avenues and approaches to protecting cargo pilots from fatigue and taking another step toward one level of safety. Among our latest efforts, and this was big, ALPA brought together all unions representing pilots who fly cargo in the United States. It was ALPA, including IPA, and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters 1224, because we're as a 7%er, we're very much smaller. We don't have a lot of comparisons, okay? And so it was very important to ensure that everybody was speaking with the same voice on Capitol Hill. And internally, here at ALPA, there were some differences of opinion, and we finally got it squared away. Everybody's speaking with one voice, and it's had an effect. It has had an effect. There's a carrier out there, you may know the name of it, right, that I have flown for, that immediately, there's a caucus, a cargo caucus within the House, immediately started circulating information to that caucus about why they feel 117 is not appropriate for cargo. So, you know, the old struck bird flutters, right? They're hearing that message and they're concerned. And I even heard it was rumored that someone said, hey, what's Joe thinking? Did he forget where he came from? And the answer to that would be no. I remember exactly where I came from, which is exactly why I feel the way I feel about this issue. So at the end of a cooperative process, we stood together in our support of the Safe Skies Act, which will apply the same flight, duty, and rest rules to pilots who fly cargo as the same who fly passengers. But the main point here is it was ALPA's leadership. It was our leadership that introduced the Safe Skies bill with one voice, and we hope to have that in the very near future. And it's looking very promising, at least in the House right now. So, in the 2018, Congress passed Congress passed a strong, safety-focused, and forward-leaning FAA reauthorization. The test, however, will be how and when the executive branch implements these advancements. And to be frank, I have very serious concerns about the lack of follow-through that I've seen so far. You would think that after going through years and years of effort to get something put into law, right, that the regulators could regulate and create the necessary regulations to put those into effect. So last week, Captain Fox and I met with Administrator Dixon and made clear our priorities, including the full implementation of FAA reauthorization and its safety and security advancements. The 2018 FAA reauthorization passed by Congress required the FAA to issue a rule mandating the installation of secondary flight deck barriers on all newly manufactured aircraft by October the 5th of 2019. That was passed. It's supposed to be done, all right? As Captain Fox stated in his September testimony before the U.S. House Aviation Subcommittee, rather than issuing the order as Congress directed, the FAA is caving to special interests and delaying following through on Congress's direction as much as possible. I don't know how you felt after that meeting, but I don't think we felt too good about that. There was not a lot of progress. So here's the part that really is disturbing. The regulator has asked that the ARAC, the Aviation Rulemaking Advisory Committee, all right, standing committee that examines various issues, develop a standard for secondary barriers when one already exists. We've gone through this. It's been to the RTCA for the development and the protocol and the standards that should be set. It's all done. I remember when I was on, before handing it off to Wolfgang Koch, when I was on the Aviation Security Advisory Committee on TSA, same thing. They have a committee, a subgroup, a cargo working group. I sat on it. A working group on secondary barriers, rather. And they said, I think the first words out of the mouth of the chairman was, well, what exactly is a secondary barrier? And we've been working on this for 10 years. This is already done. If that doesn't indicate that this is just stalling tactics right now. And oh, by the way, last I looked, United had installed them on 787s. And so there's specification out there, there's the aircraft airworthiness directed as well. So in an effort to take control of this situation with ARAC and speed up the timeline, ALPA has agreed to co-chair the group, which is good. Through our influence, we were able to do that, although I'm sure they're not too thrilled. But, and Captain Wolfgang Koch, ALPA's security chair, has accepted that position and is fully prepared to take on this issue. Wolfgang, are you in this room? Is he here today? Okay, he's not. In addition to the obvious security concerns, there is another example of how a lack of government follow-through is more often requiring workarounds that affect pilots' ability to perform our jobs safely and efficiently. While the FAA recently issued new procedures for opening the flight deck door, and think about why they might have done that based on intel, the process would be far more secure and efficient were secondary flight deck barriers in place. And the workarounds needed to secure the flight deck on passenger aircraft are no less burdensome for cargo pilots. Cargo pilots are not equipped with a hardened flight deck or IRCD door, intruder-resistant cockpit door. And passengers on cargo flights, I've told you many times, some of them are animal handlers carrying tranquilizers with sufficient strength to take down large animals. The consequences of policy in action also apply in other areas as well, like NextGen. In my September testimony before the U.S. Senate Aviation and Space Subcommittee, I underscored for lawmakers that a significant portion of U.S. aircraft lack the equipment needed to actually do many of these next-gen procedures, or PBN approaches and things like that, arrivals. As a result, pilots and air traffic controllers are forced to develop and implement workarounds to allow us to operate outdated equipment in today's complex airspace. The result detracts from pilots' ability to react nimbly to the unexpected and forces us to all accept increased risk. At one next-gen meeting, I brought along Paul Ryder. Where's Paul? Paul showed everybody a picture of what it took to fly a particular type of approach in a specific type of airplane where the first officer in a single FMS airplane had to actually slide his seat back, no longer pilot and monitoring, his feet are very not close, had to look down. Who flies that airplane? Anybody still flying that airplane around here? And while he had to use part of a page that wasn't designed to really do this, it was a maintenance page, to give recommended altitudes if somebody's flying what they were trying to get us to do was fly a closely spaced parallel operation, doing that. So obviously we stood up to that, and we won that one, so we made a good thing. And that was a situation, Paul, where I think one picture was worth 1,000 words, and everybody went, There was nothing they could say. The FAA they were done, so they backed up. So now, I was honored to be appointed by U.S. Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao, who, by the way, came to our Air Safety Forum, for those of you who might have seen her, to the FAA's Next Gen Advisory Committee in July, and subsequently represented ALPA members at the NAC meeting that very same month. And I want to emphasize the fact that we need to make the most of Next Gen now. I don't call it Next Gen. I join others when we call it Now Gen, all right? Because it's not going to be over as we get newer and newer technologies, but it's taking so long to implement them. And when you throw in government shutdowns and, funding, consistent funding doesn't exist, you set this thing back. And Next Gen, as you know, it's like a bus rolling down a highway where you're going to change the design of the bus, you're going to change the engine, you're going to change the wheels, all while people on the bus don't realize it's happening. That's the job of Next Gen, is to modernize that airspace and still not create any disruptions. And it's just almost impossible to do with the way things are being run without stabilized funding. That's why we support that. But it also helps in terms, it's critical as we talk about commercial space, right? So we have a commercial space. You're going to meet Eric Stallmer tomorrow, the president of the Commercial Space Federation. It was ALPA's initiative to begin a dialogue between the commercial aviation folks and the commercial space folks to help facilitate a dialogue about how we can more dynamically manage airspace during space launches. So we are trying to encourage equipping aircraft with technology to support modern procedures, as well as stable and reliable funding. I keep saying the same thing over and over again. And speaking of commercial space, I'm extremely pleased that Mr. Scott Pace from the White House National Space Council, that's the big one that's headed by Pence. Vice President Pence heads the Space Council. And Senator Ted Cruz has agreed to come and speak to us. So he's going to be here as one on our October 31st one-day conference on commercial space. So I hope if you're available that you'll join us. I really want to encourage the MEC chairman, at the very least, to try to get not only yourself there, but your others, because I feel like this is the work of your associations being done on your behalf, at your behest, by the way. And so it's very important. Everybody that does this, everybody that comes, everybody that's ever been to the Air Safety Forum, it's been a kind of a little bit of a life-changing event for them. So it's Halloween. It's October 31st. It's not the most convenient if you've got kids. But I encourage you to try to attend those. We not only do the Air Safety Forum, but we do, I bet you in the last several years, we've probably done about 15 of these one-day conferences where we get decision makers in the room. So we put together a really strong agenda for this particular one day, focused on integrating rather than accommodating commercial space launches. Because right now, we're just accommodating. We're not truly integrating. Right now, FAA will close up a vast swath of airspace, which requires you to go around it. Sometimes they cancel the launch, and now you've burned all that gas and used all that duty day, and it's just absolutely ridiculous when technology exists today to more dynamically manage that airspace. So I hope everybody, I want to emphasize the folks that went to the ALPA conference, the ones that came to Air Safety Forum. I think it's very rewarding for you to get to see what we're doing on your behalf. So I hope you'll come. All the issues I've mentioned so far, contracts along with the quality of pilots' work life, pilot assistance, and the safety and security of our industry contribute to our ability to create a solid and rewarding profession. We want to inspire the best and the brightest to become aviators, and we know that we need to do even more. So before yesterday's Canadian federal election, ALPA Canada sent a series of questions to the political parties, including a question about the high costs associated with obtaining a commercial pilot's license. If we want a strong profession in the future, we know that we need pilot-partisan government policy and innovative outreach to reach even wider audiences. ALPA is reaching out to inspire new aviators in more ways than ever before. I attended EAA's AirVenture Oshkosh for the first time this year. It was a bucket list. Thank you, Ryan, for encouraging me to do that. It didn't take much, but thank you. Folks, I got to tell you, it was moving. That was my bucket. It was one of my bucket list items, and just to see all the people there doing what they're doing, love of aviation and all that, really absolutely incredible. And I think I'm the first ALPA president to really go, and a lot of the members that go every year were very appreciative of it. And I'll talk here more about the amazing job being done by PDG. But I especially enjoyed flying the right seat in the Ford Tri-Motor. Thank you again, Ryan. Ryan introduced me to a retired pilot by the name of Cody Welsh, Northwest. And Cody said, hey, everybody, you pay your money, get on board this airplane and take a round robin around the ground and come back and land. And he said, hey, you want to fly right seat with me? I said, yeah. So I get in, and after we do the first 15 to 20 minutes or so, we land, and he said, you want to do another? And I'm like, uh-huh. And he says, I don't have another first officer, so let's stick with it. It was the coolest experience, I got to tell you. I cannot imagine what it was like flying that when that first came about, because it is pretty rudimentary, all right? And it's a beast to handle. It's really heavy on the controls, and it has an incredible amount of adverse yaw. You all know that. You go to turn that thing, and it's pretty heavy, and it starts to go, and then that nose starts to drift on you, and you've got to really you fly that thing with the rudders. And Cody was just amazing. Kept me from breaking anything, but it was really an experience. I got to tell you, that one's going to go down. But I also saw, like I said, members everywhere, at booths, giving presentations, engaging with future aviators. And now a little bit about the PGG, because I got to say this. I know I'm using a little extra time here, but it really bears saying. I've never seen so much incredible work being done in that area. They did such a good job. And there's even Oshkosh for Kids, and they were involved in all that. But I want to tell you something. It's really smart. If you're going to spend money on recruitment efforts into this profession, why do you think people sell you vacation timeshares while you're on vacation, all right? Because you're in that frame of mind. People that come there to Oshkosh and start, little kids, everybody from high school students to college students, that get a look at this, they are ripe, right? And they are interested. and I think you would be enormously proud. I'm going again next year, right? And so I hope that many of you will join me. I will be bugging you as we go on because I guarantee you your members will appreciate it. And I know there's, occasionally we have very thrifty. Boy, Bill is about as cheap as can be. I don't know how you did all that for as little as we spent, but you did a hell of a job. So I understood. Now I completely understood why people went every year now. It wasn't just about, it was about the pure love of aviation, but it was also about, encouraging people to come into the profession. So, and of course, anytime our members go somewhere, I want to be there. So, and it's just pilot candy. There's so many cool airplanes to look at out there. It is really neat. So we've made a commitment to come back, and the Executive Council, through the help of the Executive Council, next year we'll have a larger presence with even more real estate. We've had a kind of small little spot. Now we'll have a little bit of a larger spot, all to help inspire the next generation. Now, ALPA members are already visible and involved with Women in Aviation, the National Gay Pilots Association, and the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. But we need to do more. We need to do much more. I've spoken very much to the membership committee, and they're very resolute about this. And we need an increased focusing on diversity. And I won't make Candy stand up and give you some statistics because they aren't really necessary statistics we should all be proud of. And this isn't about, please, I got my emails about, this is not about like any kind of affirmative action program or anything like that. It's just about opening up the profession to individuals who might not see it as an option right now. They might just not. I even see, I've done a lot of research about brain development and young children, and they got me into this, by the way. I'm not normally geeking like that, but they really got me interested. And for instance, untrained teachers sometimes, or teachers that aren't fully aware, may even unknowingly or unconsciously ask a question, a specific type of question to a male versus a female, for instance, right? And it starts to lay down markers, right, and imprinting. And this is the kind of stuff they look at all the time. So ultimately, we know that this will make our association healthier and more able to adapt in the future. So ALPA's Board of Directors identified diversity as a key issue in the 2018 strategic plan. And I'm proud to report that I've created the ALPA President's Committee for Diversity to ensure that everyone, and I mean everyone, regardless of race, gender, religion, or sexual preference, feels this profession is welcoming, accessible, and promising. And so for all those people with doubts, just remember, we have standards that we live by, right, in terms of what's required to get our license, unlike a lot of other professions. So this is really, I think, I'm very excited about this and gotten a lot of really positive feedback. So, so ALPA is incredibly strong today. And we know that with this strength comes the responsibility to lift up the airline piloting profession around the globe. I take this responsibility very seriously. I know I've talked to you just about this before, especially in my role as a global labor leader among international pilot unions through our IFALPA organization. Several weeks ago, I attended IFALPA's Professional and Government Affairs Committee meeting. It was the largest such meeting in recent history. Our union's presence was front and center, with leadership provided by ALPA Canada Vice President Captain Brian Shurey, who serves as an Executive Vice President for IFALPA in PGA. So before and since that meeting, I've been personally focused on the current labor situation affecting Ryanair and British Airways pilots. Have you ever heard Evan Cullen come and speak? If you've been part of the leadership conference, he was one of the first. When we first took office, we all decided, since we were going to focus on, we went old school and got the first VP back on the international side, opened it up more broadly to everybody. That's why the invite went out to all the MECs. But Evan, we all decided that Evan would be a good speaker, and he was. And he's coming back, by the way, on the 28th, I believe, to the SPSC conference that we're going to have, right, Wesley? So if you can be there, he's worth listening to. Really a good speaker. And you think we have problems, right? This is a whole different ballgame. Imagine having 85 different bases with contracts, and the only way you can represent yourself is through the existing unions in those countries and try to negotiate a contract that could be different in every place. And the minute you start doing that, and you start, talking too much union stuff, they shut you down. And they fire you. You have a choice to go to another base under a different contract or just leave. It's not much of a choice at all, really. So, but airline pilots unions around the globe, including ALPA, are standing in solidarity with our pilots in Ireland and Britain as they pursue fair contract. I know many of you saw and shared the video on social media. I don't know if you all got a chance to look at that while we were out there in the PGA. Evan Cullen, Irish ALPA president, is also slated to speak, like I said, at the Strategic Preparedness. Sorry to repeat myself there. But look, we covered a lot here. Actually, you covered a lot, Bruce, earlier. But I want to thank you sincerely for being here today. As MEC leaders, you are the strength and the spirit and the soul of this union. I keep encouraging you, please, come with us. This is yours. This belongs to you, all right? You don't need an invite all the time. You see something that's on the calendar, say, I'm coming. But no matter where you come from or where you plan to go in your career, ALPA is here not only to support you, but to support every one of your members. And as I said so often during my campaign, give me 4 minutes of your time, and I'll give you 4 years of my attention. I meant it then. I mean it now. I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting. And I'm going to hand it over. So thank you very much for your attention, everybody. Thanks.